Good day, folks. It's a pleasure to see you. My name's Dustin Cormier. This is How to Rock Astrology. Today we're going to be doing an episode on when Uranus is in the same sign as a partner's north node, Rahu. So this is both if your Uranus is in your north node, is in your partner's north node sign, and if your north node is in the same sign as a partner's Uranus. Of course, I am a tropical Vedic astrologer. So a conjunction is when two planets are in the same sign and share the same dispositor. So your partner's Uranus could be at 29 degrees Capricorn. If your north node is at 1 degree of Capricorn, that's a Vedic conjunction because they're both sharing the dispositor Saturn. And they're in the same sign. So I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer. Vedic astrology doesn't typically anciently use the outer planets. It's one of the fun things I like to do as a sort of modern interpreter of ancient things. A neo-Vedic interpretation is something I love to give. So following in the footsteps of my teacher Ernst Wilhelm, as well as other folks that are doing this kind of thing, this video is kind of in the spirit of that. And much of the information we're going to be getting from this video is going to be sourced in Jan Spiller's Cosmic Love. This is a great book that details various things related to how one person's north node is going to affect the partner in relationship. Very useful stuff because the nodes of the moon are, of course, going to be important in describing our emotional evolution. So that's where the guts of our information is coming from today. I've made a few extra notes for myself to discuss. If you've made it this far in the video, I'd like to mention at this point that I'm going to be writing a book soon. I'm writing a book at the moment, and hopefully it's going to be published this lifetime. If it is, by the time you're watching this, you can get a link for it in the description box below. Now, let's start talking about if a partner's Rahu, the north node, is conjunct the other partner's Uranus. What's the significance of the north node? Vedic astrology considers it to be the most important thing, really. Anything going on with the nodes is going to have to do with the evolutionary narrative of the soul, because the moon is the Jivatman. The moon is the most deeply felt. It is the feeling. It's chitta. It's what you're going through. And everything has to move through your feeling of the moon. It is the lake of consciousness that we are all in. It's chitta. So everything kind of has to go through the moon, and all evolution has to go through the moon. You know, I often say to people, if you look at celebrity charts and you see amazing things happening in their 11th house, and they've gotten all this acclaim and glory, and it all seems so amazing to us on the outside, this crazy stuff in the 11th house, these crazy gains. But to the person experiencing it, if there's nothing going on with the 11th house, they just got wealth. Super cool. But what is the evolutionary narrative of their north node and south node? If I did an astrology chart for that celebrity, that's probably what they would be asking me about. Right? Because they don't have trouble with their money if they're rich and famous and celebrity, etc. So the north node especially, both of the nodes are critical for our emotional stability and purpose in life. Now, the north node person has the north node opposite their south node. The south node is where we've been. It's our past life. And it's also usually representative of our childhood. Ketu, which is the south node, it means flag. It's the territory we've already conquered. That territory means nothing if you don't integrate it with the shadow of Rahu, with the opposite of our past life. Ernst Wilhelm, my teacher, has said on many occasions that the south node is considered to be almost a rising sign in itself, a lagna in itself. So the south node really shows an energy of ourselves that we're very used to, and so Rahu, the north node, is going to show an energy that is delicious, that is very important and invokes great passion on the part of the North Node person. Now, you can have a North Node that has difficulty there, and the evolutionary narrative there is going to be significant for the person. But, you know, you can read a lot about that through my channel, through other channels talking about Rahu and difficulties with your own North Node. And this is going to play into this relationship. Any person with a North Node that has difficulty, that's in a difficult house, the difficulty of that house is going to play into their North Node interacting with the partner's planet. But the North Node ultimately, no matter what's going on there, it shows a place where the person, like a Kundalini serpent, going back and forth away from the, you know, you go stick in your castle, and then you go out into the unknown, and then you come regenerate in your castle, ketu. Then you go out into the unknown of Rahu. Everybody is psychically desiring to experience anything related to Rahu. So when a partner is interacting with another partner's North Node in any way, a planet there is going to show a place where the North Node person has an anchor to that thing that they need to experience. And usually it often shows that there's great, sometimes the South Node is more of a karmic past life thing, but it shows that this person, typically the language we use is that the person with the planet conjunct your North Node is here in your life to help you bring out the quality of the North Node, and also very much vice versa. The North Node person is there to bring out the quality of that planet. Now, that planet is going to be more or less important in that person's life. Depends on how that planet is situated. But the North Node person is going to bring it into manifestation, for better or worse, whatever's going on with the planet in question. This can be a very interesting thing in the case of Uranus. Uranus being one of the outer planets, of course. So what is Uranus all about? This is a planet that is not well studied in Vedic terms, but I've been coming up with my own ways of describing it. Well, my own limbs of research based on the work of other people, I should say. Ernst Wilhelm and others, you know, there's a great fella who's really got his nose in the books when it comes to what the outer planets mean. He's getting a lot of his information from Richard Tarnas, but he is also steeped in the Vedic tradition. It's Nishi Pandit, Neeshee, and then Pandit. Nishi Pandit talks a lot about taking Richard Tarnas's ideas of the outer planets and bringing them into a Vedic worldview and interpolation. But the general consensus is that the three outer planets resonate with the Trimurti. Uranus is Brahma, Neptune relates with Vishnu, and Pluto relates with Shiva. So, Uranus is about Brahma. The person in this relationship who has Uranus connected to the partner's North Node, the Uranus person is learning to manifest and bring out the quality of Brahma. And, excuse me, Brahma is an interesting character in the Vedic ideology. It's essentially creation making love to itself with a deep creative passion. And Brahma is known for doing some crazy things because that's the pure essence of the seed of creation. It's literally popping out of the walls of the seed. So it can cause disturbance into any society that Uranus energy is working its way through. Uranus understands, you know, gets an unconscious understanding of a system in order to get out of that system. It can be a very disruptive energy for better and or for worse. Usually both, but you know, there are ways of knowing whether it's going to be a good acid that melts the container that holds it, because that's what Uranus is. Uranus and Neptune and Pluto can all be an acid that melts the container that holds it. And the North Node person will bring out this quality in the Uranus person. Uranus relates to grandfather and struggles with the family dynamic. That can sometimes, a positive Uranus placement can heal generational trauma, for example. It can also breed new ones or react strongly to the ones that are there in a way that's not always conducive. It's conducive to realization of those generational traumas, but feeling and going through it can be difficult for everybody. But if they're there, a little self-realization, though painful, will probably be doing the work of healing. So Uranus, it is said that I get this information from Nishi Pandit. He's made the observation that the Trimurti reflects the energy of three important planets. Uranus relates to the sun, Neptune relates to the moon, and Pluto relates to Mars. These are three important planets that resonate with the Hindu Trinity. Brahma, relating to the sun, is, in my opinion, thematically speaking, there's a connection there. So you want to have a good sun in order to make the best of a placement of Uranus. Uranus is the genius, but Uranus's genius needs the malefic quality of the sun to kind of channel itself against the resistance of what is not evolving, whether that's the society around you or your own internal dynamics, depending on what house this is operating in. If this is operating in any house, there's going to be an internal and an external thing. But the malefic energy of the sun, if it's well placed in the chart, it's going to help this person to use the genius of Uranus. Now, the North Node person is going to bring out the genius. But that genius has to also... The North Node person is also going to be engaging this person with how to use that genius as well. And more of just helping them to deal with it. Because genius can also mean, as we will say as we go along, a difficulty with non-genius, a difficulty with patterns. It can show a neurotic energy in a person because they can't sit comfortably with patterns related to the house and sign that Uranus is in. And the North Node person is going to bring that out so that the Uranus person can A, be with those patterns, and B, accept that they have a genius that can go evolution. It can help those patterns evolve, whatever that is by sign and house, and even the planets involved with Uranus here. The North Node person helps you, again, the North Node person causes this person to manifest these Uranus qualities, which makes them see when they can't get into a pattern, or it helps them get into the pattern, but also helps them get past the pattern. And this could be anything. Uranus in the 6th house. They have difficulty with habits, with routines, with their health, with debt. That's a pattern that they have difficulty getting in tune with. The North Node person is going to help them get in tune with that pattern, but also use it in genius. Use their offbeatness in that regard in genius ways. Maybe they are so good at not living in a rhythm of the 6th house that this helps them to develop energy to use in very profound ways. But ultimately, this North Node person will allow you to have whatever sign it's happening in, whatever house it's happening in, get into that offbeat energy, but still maintain balance. So the North Node person can help you deal with that reality, which can be painful, but it can also be a ride. Uranus is not that significant in every person's chart. Really, it can be a dead note for a lot of people. Just like any planet, it takes a certain significations to show that anything in an astrology chart is a load-bearing wall. Uranus, all planets are active for all of us, but they're not that significant to the evolutionary journey. if it's not a load-bearing wall in the chart. Uranus can be a load-bearing wall in the chart if it's involved with Rahu and Ketu, or Rahu and Ketu's lords, the dispositor of the signs of Rahu and Ketu. If Uranus is in an angle or a trine, especially when it's really close to the cusp involved with that trine or angle, or just in the whole sign system, because I use both cusps and the whole sign system. So for example, if someone's ascendant sign is at 25 degrees of Taurus and Uranus is at 25 degrees of Aquarius, that's a tight square, that's a tight angle, that's going to be significant. But also, just being close to the MC can be significant for Uranus as well. If Uranus is in the sign of the Atmakaraka, or if it's conjunct the Atmakaraka, if there's involvement with the ascendant lord, or if Uranus is in the ascendant especially, these are all things that can show significance of Uranus as a load-bearing wall. But a partner with the north node on your Uranus, or your north node on a partner's Uranus, is going to bring the Uranus to manifestation no matter where it's placed. And it's going to make it significant in your relationship, which means it's significant to you. Now, how do we know if there's difficulty going on with Uranus? This is just, I'm giving this intro just so people can see the guts of what this is all about, and I hope you guys are enjoying it and finding it useful. Yeah, so there's, if there's difficulties with Uranus's sign, with its house, or with its lord. In Vedic astrology, there are sign aspects to the signs, Rashi aspects. If there's any significations of difficulty with the house, even with the cusps that are around Uranus, but more particularly, the house and the house lord, meaning the dispositor of the sign that is holding that house. This could mean if Uranus is in the sign that's holding the third cusp and the second cusp, and that dispositor, let's say Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is holding the second cusp and the third cusp, then Uranus is going to have interactions of the second house and the third house through Venus, the dispositor of Taurus. So if Venus is conjunct Saturn and debilitated in Virgo, Uranus is going to be having a tough time, and this is going to be expressed through the second cusp and the third cusp. I know that's all thick. That's a lot to take in. I've got a Uranus energy happening for this video, but I'm just trying to keep it all tight. Difficulty with Uranus is also conveyed by having a difficult sun. If the sun is debilitated, if it's close to the fourth house cusp where it's not really as happy, if it's being hit by its enemies, Venus, or especially Saturn. If it's with a lot of malefics, if it's hemmed in, which even the sun can be hemmed in, if it's got weak shad bala, all these things can show difficulty with dealing with the resistance, fighting a resistance, and the consistent inspiration to stick with your creative purpose. That's what the sun is. It's a malefic capacity to remain stuck on your creative purpose no matter what drags you down. Whatever is signified by your sun, by your dharma, by your whole creative purpose and energy. Another signification for difficulty with Uranus is just, I'm going to show this quickly here. If you are a woman, and there are significations for engenderment. This is an example of an extreme that hardly ever happens. I've never seen it. This a woman with the sun. So female signs is earth and water signs. So if the sun is in an earth or water, moon's in an earth and water sign, rising sign is earth or water, ascendant lord is female, is what I mean by earth and water. So let's take this. The ascendant lord is Venus in an earth sign. The sun is in an earth sign, Cancer. Moon is in an water sign, Cancer. Moon's in an earth sign. Rising sign is Earth, Taurus. Ascendant lord is female. The Atmakarika Venus is in a female sign, and it's a night chart. We know this because the sun is under the horizon. And this is a woman. This is all aligned with the feminine nature. And this is useful if Uranus is also in a feminine sign. All of this femininity is conducive to the agenda of Uranus. But if this is a woman's chart, she's got all this femininity. She has no masculinity. She doesn't have, it's not so bad when a woman has all this female energy, but it's still good to have some strength of masculinity. Usually the partner will help to bring some of this masculinity in a woman's chart who has this stuff going on. So if Uranus is in Aquarius, dealing with that side of your masculine nature is something that Uranus is going to really help you to have to deal with. And it can be difficult, but in a woman's chart, typically this is okay. If this is the chart of a man and there was all these feminine signs, but it's a male body, which means they're trying to deal with their masculinity, and they have Uranus in a male sign, Uranus is going to be causing them to deal with their male gender in a probably painful way. We can see a similar thing happening. Let's say it's a male chart. All the big three, ascendant, sun, and moon, are in male, air, and fire signs. The ascendant lord is in a fire sign, which is male. The Atmakarika is in a male sign, and it's in the daytime because the sun is above the horizon. This is a very male-centric chart, and this would be useful in a man's chart who has Uranus in Leo, which is a male sign. But if this is a man with Uranus in Cancer, it still works because a man is well supported in his masculinity, and this will support him in dealing with his feminine side. But this is a guy who Uranus is going to get him in touch with some aspect of his feminine side that's not supported by his natural nature. And this, again, would be especially tough for the chart of a woman who has all these male signs. Uranus or any outer planet in a female sign is going to help them get in roots with their biological gender. So that's just another example of how Vedic astrology thinks of these outer planets. Another key one, and this is something I'm going to talk about in the specific little pockets of the reading that we're going to read today, is the houses, right? Specifically the difficult houses. So any time you read that the North Node is having difficulty, if the Uranus person has their Uranus in any of these signs, it's the Uranus person in particular that we're talking about here, then the Uranus person has to deal with their neurotic energy related to these themes. If Uranus is in the third house and my partner's North Node is conjunct Uranus, I'm going to have to deal with the aggression of the third house. The third house actually gets easier. It's the Upachaya house that ultimately gets easier in the long run, especially if it's well supported. But even at first, Uranus in the third house is a little bit difficult for everybody because there's such a desire for competition, for rivalry, but it can teach you how to be a competitive person in a healthy way if your third house is well situated. If your third house is not well situated, you lack self-esteem, and the North Node person is going to help you to see how this lack of self-esteem limits you in very embarrassing ways often. The sixth house deals with the neurotic energy of disease, illness, your routine structures. If you've got Uranus here, you have difficulty with these things. The North Node person is going to bring out things related to that sixth house and help you realize them. Same thing with the 8th house, with everything related to it, the 11th house, and the 12th house. So feel free to pause the video to see what might come up if your Uranus is in any of these difficult houses and your North Node partner is bringing your Uranus to manifestation. Any difficulties in these houses are going to be extra difficult for this reason. All the other houses, Uranus is going to bring out its genius, could still be difficult, but it's not going to mess with you like Uranus in any of those difficult houses will. Now, that has been my long intro, 25 minutes long. Didn't think it was going to be that long. Story of my life. That's okay. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. Now, we have two next parts of this video to get into. Let's talk about first, if your north node is conjunct your partner's Uranus. So you have your north node in the same sign as your partner's Uranus. Let's dig into it. Now remember, the placement of Uranus in our birth chart reveals by house and sign the part of us that longs to experience the aliveness of change and new levels of awareness. So your north node is in this partner's Uranus sign, same sign. Your south node has had you back there in the south node for so long. Now this partner has an anchor to the place where you desire to go to. And it's tough and painful for you because you've been in your south node for so long. So your north node is excited. It's like you've been in a desert for so long and now someone's presented you with water and you just want to drink that water. But by drinking that water, you're drinking something that is probably also heavy for them, depending on what's going on with their Uranus. But even if this is a dead note for them, your thirst for the energy of your north node sign is going to bring out their awareness of their Uranus. So your purpose in the Uranus individual's life is to awaken them to the positive possibilities of change and to encourage them to make choices that add excitement to their lives. By supporting your Uranus sign partner, by supporting your partner and giving them approval and a value to their distinct brand of individuality, you set them free to follow new, enlivening avenues of self-actualization. Remember, this is coming from Cosmic Love by Jan Spiller. You set them free to follow new, enlivening avenues of self-actualization. Now, the Uranus in their birth chart shows the area in which they are most uniquely themselves, where they really stand out, where they are following their own path rather than heeding the dictates of society. You validate their innovative approaches and you help jolt them out of any stagnant ruts that they may be stuck in. Now remember, sometimes going off the beaten path is genius. But sometimes going off the beaten path can be an escape from the pressures of an otherwise natural and healthy social infrastructure. You'll really see this happening in any of the difficult houses. If your north node is with Uranus in any of these houses in their chart, let's say whole sign system, but also you can include cusps in there. And I know that that would be something that would be difficult to convey, depending. But if your north node is hitting their Uranus in any of these places, this can show that they have difficulty dealing with reality and social reality of today's time related to this particular house. You know, if your north node is with their Uranus and it's in their 11th house, then they've got Uranus in their 11th house. And they are dealing with the ego of glory and of attainment and of getting their attainments, their deep desires to attain things. They want to meet that. So sometimes they can say, oh, I don't have a big ego, so I don't necessarily want to be a big deal in this career path that I've chosen for myself. And that might be Uranus just sort of blistering and festering there. You might come along and say, what does ego have to do with you attaining your goals? Everybody's got to attain their goals. Salmon flow upstream. Do you think they make a big deal about it when they make it? No, they don't. They just do what's in their nature. Why aren't you doing what's in your nature? When you talk this way to them, which is so matter of fact, because you are so, Rahu in you can be so matter of fact in the sign of that it's in, and you're hungry for it, So when you see somebody is stopping themselves from acting on that, you can help them just clear their minds on it, And they might realize that they've got a Uranian, You know, their grandfather, their whole family energy is not used to interacting with the 11th house in this way. These things might be stopping them from their full potential where Uranus is signified there. Although they probably secretly want to do a lot in that 11th house. But they might escape it. They might make all these excuses or just find that there's something that's keeping them vaguely not wanting to move through it. And it might possibly be because, let's say, stick to our 11th house metaphor, they have desired to so strongly go towards the 11th house. They have ingenious, innovative, revolutionary ideas about whatever field that interests them. And they got so hungry for it. They fought so hard for it. They got so such genius ideas about it that all their ideas can't even be practical or functional, actually bring them the glory that they want. Because they need to bring it down in a way that society can understand it. Or they've chased it through Uranian energy when they were young, and it was so tiresome, such a big dream, that it became myopic in their view. And it's like too big of a dream for them, they think, to manifest. But you remind them, you know, you can do this thing. You don't got to do it tomorrow. But I love, you know, you as the North Node person are probably going to love supporting the memory of this thing that they, I don't know. I was a genius artist when I was up to about the time I was 20s, 25. Then I had to go to the machine, the cracker box factory, and like, you know, I still write, I still illustrate, but it's just too big to fail, or too big to not fail, you know. And then you just encourage them, let's just do some art, because I like doing art too. You know, if this is Uranus in their 11th house of Taurus, let's just do some art. What the heck? I enjoy doing it with you because you got the North Node in Taurus. You both can just like, what the hell? It's a way for us to bond. By doing that, you just naturally enjoy doing it, and they're like, holy shit, honey, I could do this. This is an example of it, right? But that 11th house energy is particularly a frustrating place in Vedic astrology because of that ego factor. So that's the 11th house, and it can happen in this way with any of these houses in their own different ways. You know, as I go through these different videos, I'll use different ones as examples. So you can help validate this person's innovative approaches and their genius ways of thinking wherever their Uranus is, and jolt them out of stagnant ruts and get them excited about it again, whatever that might be. You can, you know, even the 12th house, there's one I should say here. All of them, let's just keep going, and I'll show you another example at the end of this. Your North Node causes you to freely encourage this person to be themselves and to take action that is intuitively in alignment with their inner being. If they have a desire for change, or they want to reform society, or they're just their immediate environment, or their life, or their whole psychic energy field, in a constructive way, you as the North Node person can support their aims. You can be willing to engage in the experiment with them, where you see that they're thinking in these very different ways. Being true to the self within them ignites their aliveness and allows them to take the next step on their evolutionary journey. You are the catalyst who can make this happen for them. So they can become dependent on the raw passion that you have for that house in their chart, because you get passionate about that place, but you've been stuck in the South Node for so long that your passion for this is stable and it's consistent. The Uranus person probably has lightning bolts of passion, but then they have so much passion for it that they can almost, it's like an orgasm. You know, once you orgasm, it can be hard to reel it back. You know, so you as the North Node person want to encourage them to be in the tantra of generating that energy up the spine of that genuine excitement without causing it to come and ejaculate through the head, so to speak. You can cause them to be in the rhythm of that passion, but to keep it, to sustain it, to make it something that's not just this vague dream. It's like chasing a lover who you really deeply love, but for some reason you feel like you're incapable of actually making a deep relationship with them, so it just becomes a fling. The North Node person is like, let's make it a real thing. Let's make it not just a one-night stand. Let's bring this person into our lives, bring this energy into our lives, and sustain it. And they can become dependent on you as the person who helps to stabilize that thing, which can be a heavy energy, especially, again, if it's in any of these difficult houses. If this person's got their Uranus in their 8th house, this can be a house of deep, passionate, emotional, sexual connection that becomes so deep that it's almost, again, it's like having a liaison with someone that is so deep and so passionate that like you couldn't possibly bring that into a regular manifestation. And a lot of people with Uranus in the 8th house have a weird time with their sexual energy because it's so blistering hot when it's hot, and then you can't be that blistering hot all the time. So it's either blistering hot or ice cold with the 8th house for some people. And they hate that. They often they struggle with that. So the North Node person will bring it to a lukewarm capacity where we can bring that juicy energy into our regular lives. You can spank me in bed if you want to, but like when we go out in public, I don't want you spanking me all the time. And I don't want you, any kinky interplays that happen through the 8th house, Uranus, North Node connection, will be sublimated in a healthy and manifest way through the North Node person also desiring it, also desiring to be in that energy that feels natural to both of you. But the Uranus person will want to zing it really hard. The North Node person brings it into a natural manifestation, if everything all goes well. But this can be difficult because these interplays, this is, again, I'm being optimistic here. If both people have difficulties with that sign, let's say it's Taurus rising, the Uranus partner has Taurus rising, they got Sagittarius in the 8th house. They got Uranus in Sagittarius in the 8th house. The North Node person also has their North Node in Sagittarius in your 8th house. So there's going to be that kind of energy and interplay. And if they're both ill, if the Jupiter of both people is difficult, if the North Node person having the North Node in Sagittarius, if their Jupiter is all messed up, then it's going to show the North Node person also has difficulty with the 8th house. So both of them are bringing each other to this manifestation of this energy. And if both have difficulty, the 8th house is a difficult place to have that difficulty because it's so unstable. It's so passionate when it's passionate, and then drawn in and almost like guilty when it's drawn in. That's an example of how it can go in the 8th house. Ultimately, the North Node person, you, are going to support your partner in just recognizing that this Uranus energy is here, and if you ignore it, it's not going to go away. It's just going to cripple you. It's going to cripple your life. So let's bring it into manifestation, because guess what? I like it. That's the North Node person, and that can be a heavy thing to wield. Uranus can be a heavy thing to wield. But if somebody is you wield it, it's in your chart regardless. You're either dragging that broadsword around or you're wielding it. So the North Node person can be an exciting, helpful way to bring Uranus into the person's life, and you can be that so long as the two of you can sit with it, learn the nature of Uranus, and maintain the structure and integrity of your lives, because this is an energy that can go against that. You know what I'm saying? Especially depending on where it is. Ultimately, in the process of you supporting this person's uniqueness, the best in you becomes free to rejuvenate your life as well. And that's, of course, the placement of your own North Node. Very good. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, stay tuned for more of these episodes and videos as they come along. Thanks for watching. Now, this next bit is for if you are the Uranus person. you are now in the position of receiving your partner's North Node energy, right? So how are you going to deal with this person, this partner, who brings out your Uranus energy? Hopefully you're already in flow with your Uranus energy, but it's a tough sword to wield for everybody. As I just mentioned in the last part of the video, you're wielding that energy whether you know it or not. If it's unconscious and you are not aware that it's in your life, then you're just dragging the sword around and never using it. But if you do wield it, it's a heavy sword to wield. Uranus is a crazy, zinging energy. The placement of Uranus in your birth chart reveals by house and sign that part of you that longs to experience the aliveness of change and new levels of burgeoning evolutionary awareness, depending on what we mean by evolutionary. Emotional evolution is more of a Rahu thing. With Uranus, we're talking about like society, collective society evolving through specific individuals who are tuned to revolutionary frequencies about whatever thing Uranus is situated in. So, the North Node person, your partner, the person who has the North Node in the same sign as your Uranus, has entered your life because on some deep level, your soul is longing for you to shrug off the pressures of social conventions and begin to follow your own innovative spirit. Now, this can be a good thing or a difficult thing. And wherever it is, that's your karma, and you just got to deal with it. If Uranus is in the 5th house, I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer. I use whole sign system as well as sign cusps. So if Uranus is in the sign of Sagittarius and it's got the 8th house cusp and the 9th house cusp, then you're dealing with a little bit of both the 8th house and 9th house energy, the instability of the 8th house. But generally, I'm more of a whole sign guy. If Uranus is in the trines, then this can be very conducive to positivity. If it's in a auspicious house, Uranus is conducive to positivity. Feel free to check out my rising sign series to know what an auspicious or inauspicious house is. An auspicious house is one that is naturally a friend and is good to the rising sign. The trines are always a good place for any planet and a lucky place, but if your Uranus is in any of these difficult houses, the 3rd, 6th, 8th, 11th, or 12th, then the way that you are offbeat related to this specific house can bring difficulty, can actually limit you, but it also can bring genius. I was thinking of using the 12th house probably as an example for this one. The 12th house energy, if your Uranus is in the 12th house, then it might bring out in your experience themes of cosmic victimization. Things become lost and you take it personally. The 12th house relates to the hospital, imprisonment, and foreign places, estrangement from loved ones. So your Uranus might be causing you to feel like a little bit of an alien in the 12th house. And the North Node partner is going to cause you to realize that that isolation that you experience is possibly not necessarily a bad thing. That you feel emotionally unsettled with anyone when Uranus is especially negatively placed in the 12th house. Although the 12th house isn't necessarily 100% negative per se. Usually what happens with Uranus or any planet in the 12th house that's significant is that we experience being this black sheep, this person that's off the cuff, and we want to isolate ourselves. Sometimes Uranus in the 12th doesn't let us isolate ourselves, but we deeply want to. And the North Node partner will help you realize that it's actually healthy and natural and very good for you to take times to go away by yourself, to get out of your culture, to get out of your habits, your routines, the busy buzzing of trying to deal with debt, trying to deal with your illnesses, trying to fix everything in your life. That's the 6th house energy. With Uranus here, you might actually deeply desire to just let all that go and to relax in a state of free-flowingness. The North Node partner is going to encourage you to question when you're doing that and it's helping you, and when you're doing it and it's not helping you. Because it's likely with Uranus energy, you often will probably put your bad isolation, you'll isolate yourself for the wrong reasons, and the times where you could be isolating yourself for the right reasons, you don't do it because you've been victimized by how Uranus in the 12th has caused your isolated, emotional, strange tendencies to make you feel like this is a bad thing. The North Node person is going to bring the cream to the top for you and make you recognize that this can be actually a not only healthy thing, but a genius thing. There can be genius spiritual, mystical qualities to someone with Uranus in the 12th. So long as you can still wake up and sleep on a bed with a roof over your head by paying your taxes and living like a regular civil human being just like the rest of us. Uranus in the 12th can give difficulty with just staying alive, getting to work on time, paying the bills, etc. This is a partner, the North Node partner is excited about that reality for you. Let's say you're a Sagittarius rising and you've got Uranus in Scorpio in the 12th house. Scorpio is a watery energy. It's a very, the 12th house energy with Scorpio there. Sagittarius is having Scorpio in the 12th house can be bed pleasure people. There's a spirituality that comes from the indulgence of Scorpio, the water of regenerating through eating, through having sex, through those kind of inner strength things related to Scorpio. So you got Uranus and Scorpio, you might be afraid to do the things that you have to do to regenerate yourself with Uranus in the 12th house in Scorpio. They might feel taboo. It might feel like you have difficulty when you were young in your childhood. You might have felt like it was difficult for you to honestly express what you need in order to feel emotionally satisfied and without tension. That's the 12th house. Things might have happened in your past that made you feel like you're a victim to circumstances, and now you can't rest in the way that you need to. You can't drop everything and be in a Zen experience of allowing loss to happen. You can't let, the feeling of loss feels like a terrible, traumatic thing, possibly sometimes for someone with Uranus in the 12th house. The North Node person is going to encourage you to experience that sometimes being in bed with me, having a bed experience together with us right now, while all these other things we got to get going on in the world, you need to take a moment right now. I can see that. But we both want to do that. Because the person with the North Node in Scorpio has been stuck in Taurus. They've been stuck in trying to keep everything like earthy in the same way that you have. So now they've got their North Node in Scorpio, and they want to sit with the emotional pain of not having what's needed just right this moment. Scorpio is one of the feminine signs of bonding and of mutual bonding and emotional bonding with a partner. So your partner in that place in the 12th house through Scorpio, you got to check the sign as well, right? The stuff can get pretty deep in this way. But ultimately, your Uranus in the 12th house is going to show how in some way, you're longing to shrug the pressures of social conventions and to begin to follow your own innovative spirit. When it comes to the 12th house, that would be rejuvenating yourself, etc. So let's get out of the 12th house and stick to the general here. You've got Uranus somewhere in your chart, and it's causing you to not think about how most people deal with the sign related to Uranus. The North Node person is going to cause you to A, experience the pattern that you're not jiving with, and B, see beyond how everyone else sees it. They're going to encourage when you have genius insights with that regard. Because they've been stuck in their South Node, so when their North Node sees you thinking about this sign, thinking about genius ways of dealing with this sign, they see, don't you see that you have incredible talent here? Use an example in the other part of the video. You've been an artist. You got the Uranus and Taurus, let's say. and you have been thinking in very strange, otherworldly ways of how you deal with art. And sometimes it's such a heavy burden that when you were young, you got revved up to do it, and the Uranus energy took you there, but something in society and life, the material world, your family kind of encouraged you to feel like being an artist is something that is too heavy of a burden. It's a glass cannon. You might not make it there in life. But it's for you having Uranus and Taurus, you've got all these ideas about it in your head, and it's an intense energy to bring that back again, that passion again. If you've left it because circumstances have pulled you out of it, or it just felt too electric. The North Node person's going to just press the button and say, this is a thing that you once had passion about. Well, if they've got the North Node in Taurus, they're probably going to enjoy doing that art too. And they're going to talk with you about it. And it's just, it's something I do. Anyway, how do you do it when you draw a picture? How do you draw a perfect circle? And then you'll start, I do it like this, and then the two of you start talking about it and they liven it up again for you. But then there can be this trauma of last time I got into this, I was very disappointed that I couldn't face my creative destiny. And the partner is just going to look at you and be very, very matter of fact. And, let's just do it. Let's just play with the thing. So the North Node's person's job is to encourage you to try new paths and take chances that ultimately disrupt the status quo of how everyone else thinks about what your relationship with that sign, house, and planets involved with Uranus. The North Node person leads you to a higher level in your evolutionary journey. The old structures have served their function and they are now holding you back. It's time to replace them with new and exciting avenues that awaken your energy and aliveness and uncripple you from however Uranus has been stopping you. Because the zany energy of Uranus can be so heavy, we often will watch how we approach it. Now, this all seems honky-dory and that the North Node person's going to be bringing out good stuff, but, in a family relationship, if you are the Uranus person and someone in your family has the North Node where your Uranus is, or if it's a romantic relationship, or if it's a business partnership, or if you're in a band and this person has their North Node where your Uranus is, you'll find that you're getting close to someone who encourages this agency, this shifting in you, this letting go of how heavily and deeply you've thought about things, for better and for worse. Usually how it happens is Uranus goes so deep in one way of thinking about something. If Uranus is in an emotional place, you've got Uranus in the 4th house, and you've thought and felt very deeply through a deep pattern. That's no one can stop you from thinking about it in this way, in the way that you have, because that's how Uranus is. It looks past all the typical flags and feels deeply in its experience of, in the 4th house, Uranus in the 4th, it's like an emotional way of conceiving of your emotions in the world and how you can receive happiness. And this North Node person comes along and sees that you've got this deep running spire of how you relate to your emotions and your happiness. No one else has ever questioned you about it. Now the North Node person is saying, why do you do that? What? Why do you only receive love in this way? What caused you to experience love in this way? Well, I guess my parents set me up with this. My mother, I have this relationship with my mother. Why do you do it that way? I don't know. This can kind of be how this happens. The North Node person's just very what's that about? Right? And if you're in a deep relationship with a person who's constantly doing this to your Uranus, especially in a place like Cardinal House, like the 4th house, but anywhere, it's a difficult energy. But it's, again, this is a sword that that's attached to your belt, and you're carrying it around. If you never use it, then you've got a hole in your energy field. So someone encouraging you to use your Uranus energy can be a very good thing. But again, if it's in a difficult house or if there's difficulty associated with it, this person is going to manifest that. But if this person doesn't manifest it, it's still there. Self-realization in the light of consciousness is always a good thing, even though it can be painful sometimes. You just have to be at the right time in your life to accept the evolution of Uranus through this North Node person, you know? If you find yourself stuck in an uncomfortable situation, this person will help you see new possibilities. Now, in tough positions, this is like breaking a limb to help it re-heal properly. You know, I could keep bringing up any of these examples that we've already looked at in the houses, you know. If this is happening in your 6th house, if you got Uranus in the 6th house, and you've just completely, throughout your whole life, gotten used to dealing with waking up to an alarm clock, you know, you have a hard time getting into a job that's a 9 to 5, that's a regular gig. And there might be a genius there for you where you can work long hours outside of the clock through the Uranian back and forth, where you go 2 days without really doing any work in the 6th house, without being constructive, and then now all of a sudden for 3 days you've got a breath of Uranian energy, and you dig deeply into like reorganizing your sock drawer and your bookshelf and all these kinds of things. I actually have Uranus in the 6th house myself. Haven't gotten to the bookshelf yet though. But this person with the North Node on your Uranus in the 6th house is going to somewhat be like re-breaking a limb. That's like, you know, imagine if you broke your collarbone when you're like 12, now you're 25, and it never really healed properly. This person's going to break through the fascia and nudge that thing back in, and it can be the most painful thing ever. But this is going to allow this thing to re-heal properly, where you can work the 9 to 5, and you'll take the goods from your crazy work schedule and insert that into a more balanced lifestyle. So usually what will happen for someone who has Uranus in the 6th is that they're well served to get some kind of structure and to have people around them that will encourage it, but it's always going to be a little bit tough. And the good news is that you're also helping the other person to have a relationship with their routine and energy in a way. If your Uranus is in the 6th house, in a way, it'll be more about the sign that that the North Node person imbibes from this combination. But I digress. That's the metaphor of, you know, this person is just going to remind you, why are you doing this thing that way? And you've never questioned it for so long, but now that they've shown you that it's limiting to you. They've shown you how you are actually causing yourself to not live your happiest and fullest. And now they're bringing out the realization of how, again, A, this is a pattern that you should get into in order to find balance with it, but B, you also have a genius way of dealing with this house. In that case, the 6th house of you can work off hours and still be very constructive and creative if given your own way and the chance to do so. You know, they might take you, let's go up to the cottage for 3 months and write your book finally. Like, that's what I got going on right now. So that's just an example of it, right? Ultimately, the North Node person is going to support you in finding ways to use your genius Uranus to its best while mitigating the emotional frustration that you've experienced, or the energetic frustration that you've experienced by trying to use it at its fullest potential. The North Node person supports your unconventionality, and their influence creates an inner awakening in you that leads to greater freedom in your life. By receiving the North Node person's gift, it becomes activated and reciprocal. So when you have flashes of inspiration and intuition, the North Node person will be right there with you on the journey, gaining new insights and aliveness for themselves and their North Node sign as well, and whatever houses their North Node is in. It's going to be a mutual thing that can be very good for both in this way. Wow, that was a lot. Didn't think that was going to take an hour, but I'm happy about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is my trying to break into Uranus energy through old Vedic ways. My name is Dustin Cormier. This has been How to Rock Astrology. Feel free again to check out my book. It'll hopefully be in the description by the time you watch this. It will be eventually in all my videos. Keep your eyes on the skies. Keep your eyes out for more of these videos coming through, because they're coming through. I enjoyed doing this with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me. Take care, and thanks so much for watching.